Hi everyone, welcome to the American Mussar weekly community gathering. This is going to be our last session of the ninth cycle where we've been looking, or at least trying to look at each of the different soul traits and how they relate to Chesed. So today we'll be looking at the awe of the divine. It's one of the translations of Yirah, this concept that means both fear and awe, and both of them kind of simultaneously. Right now, we'll get started the way we always do with a short meditation. So I invite you to relax and close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. But again, excuse me, inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, Lila's decided to join us here. Excuse me, Lila.
Hello, little Lila.
Ah,
She's such a lover. I just love the way she climbs up on your shoulder.
she is very sweet, that is for sure. Okay, so that goes here. Okay, can everybody see the screen here?
Yes.
All right, very good. So our schedule today, we'll be looking at the awe aspect of Yirah. And then August 1st is my first day as a rabbi. And then we'll be on break probably until August 28th, where we'll either begin a new Mussar cycle or we'll possibly do a little workshop like the Psalm 27. No scratching. Hey, ay, she'll scratch and she'll look over. Okay, excuse me just a minute. Okay, no, we can't be here. You're gonna have to go out of the room. Okay, all right. So that's sort of that's the schedule. And as I've said before, for sure we will be resuming. Um, but I just need to get this move out of the way. So to begin with, I thought we would look at one of the mantra for awe, which is I play a small part in something greater than myself. So I'm going to stop the share and I'll pop this into the chat. Hi, Carrie. So we'll kind of open it up. What is that? Hi, Marjorie. So what does that bring up for you? I play a small part in something bigger than myself.
It makes me think about how small I feel when I'm out camping and I look up at the sky and see all the stars that you can't see in the city,
Hmm.
and how tiny I feel in the universe. It gives me a feeling of how great the universe is and how small I am.
Hmm. And is that a comforting feeling? Is that a scary feeling for you? Is it uh,
It's more,
inadequate? Is it, what is it, how does it kind of play out?
it's like awe. It's like, wow, the world is huge. I don't feel scared. Um, I just feel amazed.
Hmm.
Um, and often I remind myself that even though the universe is huge, uh, God is aware of me and my needs as people. Uh, he cares for us.
Thank you. It's lovely. Okay, so other thoughts. Yeah, Carrie.
Um, I, oh shoot, we're getting a phone call. Okay, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm keep thinking of "It takes a village," that quote,
Hmm.
and that's how I see myself in my community. I'm a small part of the world,
Hmm.
but I think a relevant part. And I do think that God has a lot to do with it. So I'm 70, almost 73. I'm still processing this. It's probably going to be processing it the rest of my life. So
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I like what you said that, I have a small part, but I do have a relevant part. And I think that American culture with its, emphasis on, individuality and achievement and that it can be like, well, if you're not big, it's right, go big or go home, right? And no, go small and stay home, or go small and change the world. I mean, it's like because there is the biggest we could possibly be is still so tiny relative to the stars, to the universe, to all the people on the planet, to the economy, to whatever. So yeah, other thoughts.
Okay. So I guess the first thing that popped in my head kind of has to do with my own, being Jewish and thinking about, just being one part of the nation of Israel and, the whole nation as a whole. Um, that we're a small part, and here we are sitting in the diaspora, but my heart a lot of times longs for the people there and all the issues and things happening over there.
Hmm.
So I think about that.
Yeah, thank you, Anita. Yeah, this piece of this is about connection.
Yes.
Yeah, love that. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's kind of nice to be a part of something. I mean, I wasn't always like a joiner type, like in high school and stuff, but when I did, it was really nice to be like on a team or to have others. That's one of the reasons why I'm moving to another city because I want to be a part of something. I didn't want to be, even though I'm getting more and more people coming to me to like, can you do a baby naming? Can you do a wedding? Can you do this, that? But it's like there's no continuity and each interaction is lovely, but there's no real long-term relationship opportunity. So it's making me think of that too. All right, well, let's go a little bit deeper, unless someone else has something they'd like to add. Nope, okay. I don't know why it's asking me for a prompt every time I share now. Um, so can I have a volunteer this is talking about the kind of idea that Yirah can mean either fear of the divine or awe of the divine. and how do we, or sometimes both together. So how do we balance those? So Rabbi Judith Lazarus Siegel, I think in the Mussar Torah commentary, kind of talks about this. So volunteer to unmute and read, please.
Okay, I'll read it.
Thank you.
Okay, many Mussar teachers encourage us to orient ourselves toward the side of fear, especially of divine retribution for our transgressions, by Rabbi
Pause
Judith
you.
Lazarus Siegel.
Thank you. I'll just pause you here and comment on this. So yeah, there's a definite Rabbi Israel Salanter, really revered figure for um, creating the Mussar movement and for speaking out, for the 19th century version of social justice, or yes, we should be eating on Yom Kippur because there's a dysentery outbreak and we need to be strong. And he took a lot of heat for that. But like his writing was very fire and brimstone. It was very much in the strain of Jewish thought and teaching around, reward and punishment, which is very much a thread through Judaism, but of course it's not the only thread. And so, okay, Anita, please continue.
Okay, however, Jacob is a model of another kind of Yirah. Jacob is fearful, and rightly so. Not only has he done wrong in the eyes of God, but he has wronged his brother, who may understandably be hurt and angry with him. Jacob moves beyond his fear, symbolized by the wrestling he does with a man, perhaps his conscience, throughout the night. When we have wronged someone else, we too must take that fear of what may become of us, either through divine punishment or the anger of the person we have harmed, and turn it into something more productive.
Okay, thank you, Anita. All right, so what is Rabbi Siegel's point? What is she arguing here?
God punishes sin.
That's certainly one, that's certainly the first part, but is that kind of where she ends up?
No.
So where does she go with it? And this is to the group.
Yeah, we have to do something about it. We have to um, probably go to that person if we've wronged another individual and make some sort of restitution for what we did. Doesn't have to be financial necessarily, unless it was a financial issue, but somehow go to that other person.
Yeah, try to make
That's
it.
forgiveness for what we did.
Mhm. Thank you, Anita. And Carrie, I see your hand up as well.
This made me think of what my brother did the past year, or actually the past 2 years, probably, when he found out he had pancreatic cancer. He knew that was a death sentence, and he reached out. He alienated tons of people, all his best friends, family, all the way down, a lot of people. Anyway, he reached out to all of them that he could connect with and reconnected, and I don't know if he really apologized, but he said, let's just forget about everything that happened and let's just start all over.
Mhm.
I love you, you love me, expressed our continued love for one another, and didn't even go into the stuff that he was so mad about. But I think that's what he was doing. Oh, he couldn't prevent his death, but at least he had some closure. And so did all of us.
Yeah, and some healing and repair. to use Rabbi Siegel's words, what good it would have done him to sit there for a couple of years, being afraid of the retribution after he died for alienating all these people. He said, I'm gonna try to, I don't know if make it right's the right word, but make it better. Thank you so much for sharing that story. That's very powerful. I know you've referenced it before, and I know it meant a lot to you that he did that. Beth.
Um, it kind of what Carrie said about it takes a village, and Anita mentioned, apologizing, making things right with the people. That's one side of it because we are part of a community, but we also have to answer to God alone. Um, we stand before Him all by ourselves, nobody with us, and so there's kind of both sides to it. So there is this fear that we're going to have to uh, explain things, answer to God, and um, it's not quite like the Calvinist uh, fire and brimstone, but there's certainly an element to it. But being part of the group, um, if you make things right, if you apologize, if you make amends, um, I think makes it better because I think God, if we ask forgiveness of the person we've wronged, then I think God also forgives us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's essential to make it right with the people that we've wronged, the people we've had a rupture with, and to try to get that repair.
So
Yeah, Anita.
can I just add? So Proverbs 9:10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom," but it's not being afraid of God; it's reverencing and awe for His power and authority. So it's not in a negative sense, but our kind of the respectful recognition of His holiness and our desire to please Him.
Yeah, and that's the Hebrew is Yirah.
Yes.
So it's again often translated as fear, but it could just be translated as awe. And you sort of talked about this idea of reverence both at once, but it could also be like, wow, this is my idol, and I don't want to let them down. And I really want to try to live up to their expectations, and they've set a good example and they've given a lot of good guidance. And out of respect and awe for what they've done, I'm going to really try to live up to that, which is another way that we could look at that same teaching. So I'm glad you brought that in. Carrie, I see your hand again.
Ideas are popping up. I'm thinking about what you have taught us about every person has a divine spark in them.
Mhm.
So that divine is God. And I'm trying to figure out how that works with the questions we're asking today, or you're asking today. Because I do think that's a big part of it. If you do believe that we all have a piece of God in us, or we, connected, I think that helps us make amends and forgive ourselves, or forgive ourselves. And I'm sorry, there is an inch of pollen on our car. It's just awful right now.
Oh, geez.
um, yeah, so I'm trying to figure that out, how that is all connected and how it helps or doesn't help.
Sounds like you're sensing there is a connection though, because
Yeah.
we're able to see the divine in other people, seeing the divine in ourselves. That could be also another small part of something greater. We all kind of contain these divine sparks, and then together, it's a flame. So, yeah, another piece of the puzzle. Karen.
So I was thinking about this as it re- um, as it relates to free choice, free will. And in that way, if we see the attributes of God as parental, we have a choice as leaders to try to bring others along by instilling fear or instilling admiration, as in they like how we do things and they want to do them the same way. And that probably would bring more good seed to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I also see it as my choice to do things because I'm afraid of what the results will be if I don't behave the way I think God wants, or to say, hey, you've got some really good attributes and I like those and I want to see how I can use them to make my life and the lives of those around me better. And so I tend to go more with the awe than the fear side of Yirah, from both perspectives, from being the one who's looking up to how do I want to live my life, and the person who has the opportunity to have followers and decide how I want them to feel about me. And not in fear would be my choice.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I love that. All right, well, let's take this to another layer. Okay, so here we have the spectrum of the awe aspect of Yirah, where if we have too little awe, we can become very self-centered. We can be like, oh, well, we're actually the center of the universe. But if we get too much into awe, we can really become disconnected from the world, and it's sort of everything's too, I had a rabbi friend who was explaining their spiritual journey to me, and they were a dancer and they got involved in all this stuff. And then they started learning Kabbalah, and they're like, I really understand why, they'd say you shouldn't learn this till you're 40 because it can be so esoteric and so deep that if you don't have like a grounding in some life experience, you can really just kind of float out there a little bit. So with this in mind, I have someone read the second bullet out loud, please.
I'll read it.
Okay.
Where there is no wisdom, there is no awe. When there is no awe, there is no wisdom. Rabbi Eliezer Perkei Avot 3:17.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to stop the share once again, and I will put this in the chat. So where there is no wisdom, there is no awe. Where there is no awe, there is no wisdom. One of these little pithy phrases from Pirkei Avot. What the heck's he talking about? Is this a big puzzlement, or is this kind of, do you connect with this in some way? Toby.
Well, I think if you aren't in awe of some of the things in the created world, then you're just stupid. Because you're missing all the wonders of the universe. If you think you already know everything, Well, more power to you. But I think you miss a lot if you have that viewpoint. Whereas if you have, I mean, all it takes is going outside. I'm not a real nature buff, I got to tell you. But when I'm scuba diving or when I'm out somewhere that is like I'm into archaeology. So anytime I'm in an archaeological site, I'm always about awe.
Mm.
And it is, it's very humbling. I mean, awe goes with humility. It's really, if you are humble enough to know, I like the first quote, know before whom you stand, to always think that whatever I'm doing right at the moment, God is going to know about and observe or whatever.
Mhm.
That sounds a little paranoid, but I think if you believe that, um, it helps you to moderate your behavior more appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Thank you, Toby. Marjorie.
Hey, I think that being in awe is actually acquiring wisdom. You're curious. You're coming from a stance of, there's a Musar, what's a Behir, a Behira or Hitlamdut, where you're very curious
Mhm.
and you're developing this interest and this awe. So you're acquiring wisdom. And once you've acquired the wisdom, you can turn around and say, oh, yeah, now I get it.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, Hitlam Dude, self-reflective learning. We may have even started this session on that. Can't remember. Maybe that was a different. We've covered it once or twice in our cycles, but yeah, it's an important kind of underlying practice. Michael.
I'll take a shot at this. I have to confess, this is by far the soul trait I struggle the most with in terms of even understanding it from an intellectual standpoint or even an emotional standpoint. But I think it may have something to do with silence,
Hmm.
um, because I know that I'm a nature buff too, and but what the only way I get a sense of connection with nature is if I'm silent.
Hmm.
If I'm thinking, if I'm talking, if I'm distracted, I'm not present. And I think maybe what awe is asking of me is to be present, and being self-centered, the ego would make me less present.
Mhm.
And being overwhelmed would certainly make me less present because I would want to run and hide.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's something about being present there and
Mhm.
being silent in that presence
Mhm.
that makes awe more possible. And maybe if I'm quiet, I have a chance of learning something.
Yeah. It's hard to learn something when you're talking.
Yeah.
Paul, I see you sitting forward. Did you want to add something here? No? Okay. I didn't know if you were just leaning in and just like ready to go. Yes. Um, I'm glad that Toby sort of brought in the know before whom you stand quote as well, because that's sort of part of it too. It's like, I'm in Yosemite right now. I'm in a national park. Um, is this really where do I want to sit in my tent and hotspot into my computer and surf the internet? That's not being receptive to kind of the world around me. Um, and this has some personal meaning for me as well because I sent an email requesting some information from the new congregation, and I didn't hear back from a day or two. And My wife pointed out, it's like you're an authority figure now, so people want to get it absolutely right before they answer you. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have to be just really careful about what I ask for because I've been on the other end where the CEO or someone says, oh, I wonder about this. And it turns out they don't really care about it, but 10 people are scrambling to kind of get that information from an offhand remark. So and sure enough, like 3 days later, I got this incredibly perfectly laid out, immaculate bullet pointed list of all of the stuff that related to what I asked about. And it was very nice to get, but I was like, okay, I have to know before whom I stand. I'm standing before a community from a position of leadership and need to be respectful about how I exercise that. We don't want to be talking over people's heads. We don't want to be talking down to people. We don't want to be talking up to people either. And so I think, as Michael was saying, all of these relate to silence. When do we speak? When do we not speak? Um, when do we listen? That's a fantastic connection. Okay, Paul.
So I'm leaning. I'm leaning. I can't lean anymore. Um, this is a great conversation. I love hearing what everybody's had to say. And I was thinking about how this morning Carrie and I went and we've been with grandchildren an awful lot and just very, very busy. So this morning was the first time we had to actually go down to the beach. It's not on a weekend, so we don't have throngs of people here. So just basically, there were four of us in all on this long beach, and we were the ones, mostly walking. And it was so. This conversation reminds me of when we were walking. Um, I was looking down the rocks, and I guess, I was open to being surprised, I was curious and just open to something new coming into my field of vision. And so there were some things that I picked up that were really interesting. And I don't have to share them, just that for me, they were visually interesting. And it got me thinking in this conversation that in some ways, if I am before any living being, and I am open to whatever it is that encounter has to teach me or show me. And for me, it's more of thinking of my higher power being present, or the infinite being present in some way in every, I'm not always aware of it because I'm focused on other things, but if I can stop, um, Michael said, to be quiet, silent, and really allow myself to be open to that, it's just that is for me is standing in awe of what's around me. And so it's not a fear-filled awe, it's more just a wonderment-filled awe.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And that sort of relates, I think, to kind of this whole wisdom on wisdom too. It's like with really by opening yourself up to kind of the amazement around you, we can learn something. And then we learn something, we get a little more wise. So, all right, well, as we get ready to start heading into our breakout rooms, I had a couple things I wanted to share related to this issue, of nature. And not everyone has the same ideas about the divinity. Some people are not comfortable with it. Some people may be agnostic or atheist. But there is a lot of wonder and awe in the world. Um, and this is, a couple of quotes here, just talking about, from the Talmud, and calculating the astronomical seasons and the movements of constellation as being kind of noticing the divine handiwork. And so I thought that was an interesting connection. And a couple of, pictures from the last couple of weeks. On the left, this is people watching, the huge lava fountains from the Kilauea volcano on the Big Island in Hawaii. And the email I'm writing is sort of makes reference to this. And then on the other side, we have Mount Etna erupting, and this is a view from space. So this is from like this space station that's up there or whatever. And I mean, that's just incredible that you can see this, from orbit and, these tiny clouds. And that's, I just find incredible. Okay. So for your partner, I hope this isn't too esoteric. And if it is, I apologize, but we'll see where it takes us. So a reminder, so here is kind of how do chesed and awe interact. So a reminder, chesed is doing for something for another person without expecting anything in return. And yirah is fear of the divine. And when we practice chesed, it's a way of imitating the divine. And there's a teaching, just as God visits the sick, so should we visit the sick. Just as God comforts mourners, so should we comfort mourners. And so I want to know, does awe help us practice Hesed? Does it help you practice Hesed? Is imitating the divine a metaphor that is helpful for your practice? So, did I stop the share? It looks like I did. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat. And then I will open the breakout rooms. Okay, so the rooms are open. Welcome back, everyone. We've been joined by David, who had a conflict but wanted to come and check us out. So welcome.
Hi.
Now, I would love to kind of hear, how did those conversations go? What did you talk about? What insights about awe and chesed did you have, if any? Yes, Carrie.
We talked about natural wonders and staying quiet to hear it, listen to it. But we also talked about, well, at least I did. Talked about people that I am in awe of, the people that Greta, who's on that ship to take aid to the Mideast. I mean, that's it's just, I just am totally in awe of that. And I'm in awe of the people that respond to disasters.
Hmm.
In awe of the people in my community who are doing what they can to help our immigration population, which is large, and keep ICE at bay. It's not working, but we're trying. And so there's for me, there's two kinds of awe, the natural awe of the universe, and our small, we're just specks in that just blows me away. And then the awe of the people in the world,
Yeah.
those that are doing really good things. So that's what I talked about. Boys talked about other stuff.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie. Who would like to share next?
So
I was listening to Carrie, I was thinking about like what I think of as like the supermenschy people. Like there are certain acts of chesed which are, the foster parents, the people who volunteer to go into prisons and work with prisoners, um, the clergy who go into prisons. I mean, these are the things which, um, are not something I don't think I could do. And I just have so much respect for people who can do that. Um, and of course, we don't need to do something that big to do acts of chesed. The small ones count just as much. But boy, there's some people who are really, there's one person I follow on Facebook, and it's like he's going into prison, he's working on this, he's working on that, and oh, and then he was a kidney donor too. So it's like, all right, I'm in the registry, nobody's matched, but still, that's like, wow, incredible.
Greg, are you talking about Rabbi Shmuley, Rabbi PhD Shmuley Yanklowitz?
Yes,
Is
yes, I
he?
am.
Okay. Well, there are that many.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he's on the top of the Hesed list forever. I couldn't believe it I mean, he's our local guy. I mean, he's here in Phoenix. One of his locations is here in Phoenix, and I think this is the main one. But wow, yeah, really, like over the top, like
Yeah. Also a Mussar guy. I've had a
yes.
privilege of going to some of his teachings, and he did a scholar in residence, and remember the rabbi introducing him, who was very brilliant and was young, but not as young as he was. It's like, okay, well, he's 5 years younger than me, and he's written 6 books and has all these kids, and like, what have I been doing this whole
And gave away a kid to somebody he didn't know. But if you are participate in his discussion groups, um, he is just brilliant, and he's a brilliant moderator. He knows everything about everything, and can carry on a cogent discussion with pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
So anyway, just enough about that.
Yes. And very like loving and humble, and so okay.
He walks the walk.
Yeah. Yes, Paul.
So I was one of Carrie's boys. It was in our group here, so I thought I'd speak up for myself anyway. So it was interesting to me that that finding the balance between the too much and the too little awe. Too much awe means I'm around people that are so accomplished that how could I possibly compete with them? So I'm not going to do anything.
Hmm.
That's I've
I've
certainly had that. And then the other end of having not enough awe of what's then it's all about me, you know, I just think, I walk on water. And I mean, I've been at both ends of of that spectrum, it's been there. And finding a place in the middle where I can be around people that are truly accomplished and still feel like I know that I do what I do. I do me. That's been my awakening after, 70 years on this earth. It's like, oh, I just have to do me. I don't have to do anybody else. I don't have to be anybody else. And so I think that's part of what I see is the lesson here for me anyways, that it's really finding that balance so that I'm able to be the person that I was meant to be, what the divine can channel through me, and then but not take not take credit for it, in terms of, oh, it's all me. It has nothing to do with anybody else. So anyway.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, we have time for one more comment, probably. Anyone would like to add something? All right, well, we will close the way that we always do with a short meditation once again. So I invite you to relax and close your eyes. And take in a deep breath through the nose and a nice leisurely exhale. And again, a nice deep breath and leisurely exhale. Let's take a moment of gratitude for this community, for the souls who have joined us on this journey today and in the past months and the past years. We are connected. However many thousands of miles we may be apart, we are connected and together have created something bigger than any of us alone. When you're ready, you may open your eyes.